Let me ask you this. We had Jonathan Sains on talking about it several times this year, talking about the Texas Religious Freedom Amendment to the Constitution, SJR 4 by Senator Campbell. And I understand that it basically just reaffirms and puts a little bit stronger position on what's already law in Texas, but we see how extremely aggressive the lobbyists to roll back these things across the country through lawsuits and other things. And it seems like a good idea to me. And I understand that I've been told there are 5 Republicans on the State Affairs Committee you chair in support of the Religious Freedom Amendment. But is that enough to get it out of committee, or why are we not having a vote, or are you going to have a vote on it?
Well, I think I don't necessarily agree that there actually are 5 votes. At least there's people that may have said, some people just don't, they don't want to vote against this. But here's the concern.
Well, what's the problem with it?
The concern is...
Tell us, what's the problem?
Whenever you put something like this in the Constitution, it changes the whole complexion of it. And while it may strengthen the cause that you and I think needs to be protected, it also opens the door for challenges to other things that we may not think are protected or should be protected. And when you put it in the Constitution, it raises the level of the right to a degree that I think we have more unintended consequences than we have with a statute. If we start having unintended consequences with a statute, which, by the way, has been upheld by the courts, the Supreme Court in Texas, you'll see, if we have problems, we can address those. Once we put them in the Constitution, then courts can really start writing some pretty interesting issues, and I believe it's better to keep that issue in the hands of the people. We have a constitutional, Texas constitutional protection of religious freedom already in the books. It's not as broad as this statute, but this statute was carefully negotiated several years ago, and I think it's done a good job. If there's a Supreme Court case out there that I thought was pretty interesting, the way it protected that statute. Our courts right now are very conservative, generally. And
well, I think that would be the argument for further codifying is that the future, to make it harder to roll back everything just when you have one big election turn.
Well, what I'm trying to prevent, at least, and it's kind of the job as a chairman, is you look at these bills and you say, you do not want to roll something out there that has the potential for unintended consequences. And typically when you put this sort of a constitution is supposed to be more principle than prescriptive statute, and by putting prescriptive statute in the Constitution, you're inviting some very abusive types of arguments that basically will create the unintended consequences. And having it in the Constitution basically gives what I would call a platform for those types of things to happen. We've got a lot of religious issues, Sharia law. We've got a lot of different things out there that we didn't have 20, 30 years ago that you scratch your head about and say, hey, I'd rather have that in a statute where the people's representatives can deal with it as opposed to the Constitution where we're out of the picture now and it's just the courts.